Good evening from Copenhagen, Denmark, and good evening to...
Nå, anyway. Vi er slet ikke i center i dag. Hvad?
Center.
I'm not centered. Jeg laver en outro nu, Lauke. Må jeg bede om mit skærmbillede? Kan du smutte? Smut? Ja. Der var jeg. Hold da op, ja. Du milde himmel. Jeg laver lige outroer. Ja.
Hi everyone, thanks for watching. You can support our work on our website ageoftruth.tv. And please like our videos, subscribe to our channels on YouTube, BitChute and Brighteon. And remember to hit the bell for notifications. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook. To be sure not to miss any of our shows, you can sign up for our newsletter on our website ageoftruth.tv.
Thank you, Lucas, and thanks for the work you're doing and your your cameraman and reporters and all that. It's great with Age of Truth. Check out Age of Truth.
Age of Truth.
Age of Truth.
The truth about Age of Truth? I don't know how to explain that. I think the truth is that there is not just one truth. There's a lot of truths out there. It's not just one thing. I think the truth is something you find inside yourself. And the other truth about us and how we've done Age of Truth TV for 15 years now is because that we stood together. There's this special friendship and great connection between me and Lauge, who's the producer of the show. And without him, I would not be able to do it. I mean, he is the core of the show, as I am myself. We are together, we're doing this. And it's very special, it's very unique. And the truth is that everything is based on connection and friendship and camaraderie, you know, just as the world can be built on love. And the only truth there is, and the only truth worthy of talking about and focusing on, is love.
Lucas, I gotta tell you, you're one of my favorite interviewers ever. You really are. Just
Thank you.
awesome. No, thank you. Because you've interviewed all these wonderful people and things that brought topics to the table that a lot of people aren't necessarily familiar with. An actor, I see. You are a performer. Tell me everything. What can we learn about the truth of Lucas Alexander?
The interesting thing to tell you is that I'm actually I'm an artist. I'm a performer and a singer and a performance artist and an actor and a producer. So I've been doing that for a long time, way before I started doing the interviews. And so a lot of people that know me from Age of Truth TV, they of course see that. But I think it's fairly obvious when you look at me that I'm kind of an artist in a way. So people are not probably too surprised when they hear that this is what I've been doing for a long time, actually.
Lucas, I wanted to say to you all day that I felt you had really strong Arcturian connections. And you see, because all of us, before we came to Earth, we came from a star system within this Milky Way galaxy. Most of us. Some people came from outside of this galaxy entirely. But I feel that you came from Arcturus. So I just feel I want to do a little greeting for you in the Arcturian language. See what you feel. Okay? Mishlekusan malakodishtia. Akalakazi meduza the bedakalakodasa. Akalakajista son of Alakasia. A mishlokasada pedaksul of bedaka. Ola sword is saying Balakazolokoya. A mishlokasamatia. A melokaziti si lakadibidi salabadakosia. A lakaditi soda kadab sugla sugadiasia. A la sedabidi kolakazita kazabatia. A mishtiaka matia, 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 matia. Which just means you are loved, you are blessed, and so it is.
Wow.
Everything that lies hidden in the dark is not visible. But if we put spotlight in the darkness, everything will be revealed. Nothing will no longer remain hidden away. If something is buried in the sand or under a rock, we cannot see it until someone starts digging. The truth is the same. When people wake up to greater awareness and no longer let fear stop them from acquiring new information, they can take their own spiritual power back and remove the shadow veil that has been covering their vision. Buddha said, 3 things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. The truth is inside of you.
Since I was a child, I always wanted to be an actor and a singer or a performer in one way or the other. I loved the theater, I loved films, I loved, the idea of presenting another personality in a play or on the stage in one form or the other. So this is what I did. Even as a child, I started acting as a child, and And I was always interested also in doing interviews. I think I was fascinated by the idea of really going very deep into certain topics. But at that time when I was growing up, like you, I'm sure, and everybody else, we didn't know anything about the world. We didn't know what it was really like, what we later on all had to face, those of us who woke up. So it was presenting the news, let's say, on television that I was interested in, and then started to do interviews with celebrities, and not anything like who I started to interview on Age of Truth TV, but people that I thought had an interesting life. You can always find something interesting about anybody's work. I think I could actually meet somebody on the street and start to talk to them, and I always had that ability. And I was interested. I've always been interested in people and in the human race generally, until I really started to question, what is the world really like? And that took me on a whole different journey towards waking up, becoming aware, understanding that everything I thought the world was like, everything we were told, is a lie. Or basically, you can turn everything upside down. Nothing is what we've been told. That was a huge shock, as I think it is to everybody who's waking up. My awakening, so to speak, happened in 2005. And at that time, YouTube was young, was very, very new. And the internet was young, and we didn't have access to a lot of information. So, and everybody around me, also in the circles of show business, and they certainly didn't know, and when you start to wake up, you want to enlighten everybody. You want to wake them up as well. And very, very easily, very quickly, I understood that this was not going to happen.
I'm here with Luke Rudowski in front of the Marriott Hotel in Copenhagen, Denmark on the 30th of May 2014, where the annual Bilderberg meeting is taking place right in here. So who is change?
You, everybody, me. The person sitting right now watching this video. Everybody in this world. We make small actions that really all add up and really all build up. And a lot of the things happen only with our compliance, only with our ignorance, only with us allowing it to happen. So I'm hoping to change the current trajectory we're on with information and knowledge, and a healthy dose of skepticism when it comes to things like this.
It's always fascinating to be here at the Vatican, which is possibly the richest and most powerful little state in the world, in the middle of Rome. All full of symbolism, ritualistic symbolism, rituals and alternative information if you look for it. And it's not just a Catholic thing, really. It's actually alternative world history that you can find here. And the first time I was here was when I was a child. My father took me here.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of Age of Truth TV. I'm Lucas Alexander in Bella Italia in Firenze, the one and only beautiful Florence, here in Tuscany, Italy, where everything seems like bliss.
We are live at a very special press conference here in Austria.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Age of Truth TV. I'm Lucas Alexander.
I'm Lucas Alexander in Copenhagen, Denmark.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Age of Truth TV. I'm Lucas Alexander in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
I'm Lucas Alexander in Las Vegas, Nevada.
I'm Lucas Alexander in Hollywood, Los Angeles, California.
In Boulder, near Denver, Colorado.
In Budapest, Hungary.
What happens to us when we die?
Yeah, that's a good question, no doubt about it. And I have to honestly say that I don't know. But I'm tending to think that there is something to reincarnation.
I agree with the Asian religions of reincarnation because, again, the energy cannot die, so you cannot die. All your thoughts, all your feelings, your love, your hate, your jealousy, whatever, that is in the energy body.
It's my conclusion over many years that reincarnation is a trap. It's not that it doesn't exist, although I don't think it's quite the same as it's explained. It's a bit more subtle, maybe, but I do think it's a trap.
The recycling of souls, reincarnation, is the machinery of this universe. Since hearing that, and having had a lot of discussions with a lot of other people about this whole thing, one of the growing consensus of investigators is whatever is the conflict, whatever is a secret war, whatever has been going on this planet for 270 million years, there are beings that are studying where the human soul goes at the moment of death because they cannot enter that dimension.
They cannot enter that dimension.
When you die, you're met by whoever you believe in. If you believe in God or believe in Jesus, or if you're Muslim and believe in Allah, or whoever you believe in meets you there. And for instance, now I will be met by the Great Pumpkin, because I believe the Great Pumpkin is gonna meet me there.
That's going to be an experience.
What people are calling the white light is not always the same white light. It's not all lights are the same. Not all light beings are the same. And you can be deceived by one being looking like a light being when in reality it's a dark being.
So they can change form.
Absolutely. And all I'm saying is that I would be very careful with thinking that everyone is doing the same thing and that all these experiences are the same.
Even extraterrestrials are worried about AI, that extraterrestrials have had their own negative experiences with AI and that it was a threat to their civilization.
But could some of these extraterrestrial beings in fact be artificial intelligence, say from the future? In a world of confusion, of darkness and light, yin and yang, you certainly a light.
Oh.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Lucas. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I need to give you a hug. What a beautiful. Oh, you're so sweet. You're beautiful.
So are you.
Oh.
Maybe there's a book about the great white light. Oh, look at that. Steps on the path to enlightenment. That's it. Path to enlightenment.
The moon is half full. And there's the Eros, the god of love.
With which we bind ourselves and each other, blessed with your holy vibration.
So the pineal gland is the same thing, the same symbolism as the all-seeing eye, the eye of Horus, even in Lord of the Rings film, the eye of Sauron. It is the one-eyed symbolism. It is symbolic for our intuition. It is the road, the pathway to our intuition.
I believe that it's a wake-up call, and the question is how many people will wake up. So that's why it's really important for me to tell that you can purify your pineal gland. And you can do it by yourself. You don't need any money or anything for it. You can just do it. Of course, you can buy my book, you know. It's not so expensive. Okay.
So when you say creational, do you mean it's because we can mate, we can have sex,
No.
and reprocreate?
No, we can move mountains. This is what is written in the Bible.
Please talk about that.
When a human manages to revive his heart consciousness, the thoughts turn into something that is embedded in the heart consciousness, and the emotion turns into something that is embedded within heart consciousness. So it becomes one. It is impossible to have a contradiction between the two. And when you reach this condition, that actually the main identification is with heart consciousness, and the thought is a subterrane and the emotion is a subterrane, but because the identification is in the core, in the center, in the complexity of the heart consciousness, this binary thinking and the trinary emotion become part of the 12th star, of the lotus flower structure of the heart. You know, the 2 goes into the 12, the 4 goes into the 12, the 6 goes into the 12, and the 3 goes into the 12. It's about symmetries of chakras, basically. So if the core identification is back in the heart, and all the rest becomes subordinated to it, everything is in coherence. And when this happens, we unfold these creational powers.
There's different ways that they take control over people in positions of power. And that was all being discussed and put into place heavily in Mackinac Island, Michigan, when I was just a little bitty toddler. By the time I was 9 years old, I was trafficked to Pierre Trudeau, who was the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau's father. Pierre Trudeau is a master of MK Ultra mind control of individuals and nations, and absolutely used the pedophile agenda to further creating a compliant society. It was also in Mackinac Island, Michigan, that I would meet who would become my owner in MK Ultra mind control, and that was U.S. Senator Robert C. Byrd.
You were, of course, part of the Montauk Project, and you were one of the so-called Montauk boys, and you were a victim of mind control programming and compartmentalization.
We were taught during this project that humanity was incapable of taking care of itself, and if left on its own, would destroy itself. So we were indoctrinated to believe that the work we were doing was beneficial to humankind and would actually save the planet and all the species on the planet. And that mind control and the programming was actually helpful to continue with the civilization.
Really?
This concept actually came from reptilian mindset. As you may know, the reptilians were the first creatures that came to this planet to settle and to colonize. And they have mind control and programming as a way of life for over 1 billion years.
You talked about Kronos or Kronos. Are you in fact talking about Saturn symbolism? And do you believe that Saturn plays an important role in keeping human consciousness down?
So government, church and state are the same thing. The kings and the priests, in that sense, are the same creature, if we're not very careful. And the point is disempower government by uncoupling from it. And yes, tear up the birth bond and tell Cronus to go and fuck itself, because you don't need to be registering your birth or your death, or when you had a tooth pulled out, or when you cross a road, or when you sold a car or bought a car. You don't need to be telling daddy any of that. It's none of his goddamn business. It's your business. And you're a natural born, limitless, immortal being who has been mind-fucked into believing that you're not immortal and that you are not limitless, and that you are an agent, a unit of time and money.
How can you actually have an alien lover? How does that work? Is that like a dimensional shift, or an out-of-body experience that you experience in a trance, or is it actually physical?
It can be both. You can, have your energy body taken from your physical body, and you can interact on that energy level, or you can actually interact in the physical body. Some of the work I've done with some of my clients who have been affected by a reptilian lovers. They claim to be bodyguards, but in actual fact, they say they're lovers. And that is on an energy level. So again, it's very common. And it's all about what they call the breeding program. It's all literally about trying to create living creatures that can contain a wide range of souls, whether they're human or reptilian or feline, doesn't matter. They're trying to find a physical form that can survive on the planet, because at the moment, most hybridized beings have a very short lifespan. Now, a clone has a very tiny lifespan, but hybridized creatures can last maybe 10, 15 years. So they're continually looking for genetics that might allow those physical bodies to last longer.
This is an electrical universe, and you're an electrical being more than anything, even more than you are a biological being. Your body is 85% water, few chemicals in there that make up you. But is that you? It's just a vessel. What you are is an electromagnetic frequency of consciousness. That's what you are. Everything you experience is electrical. So if they can bombard you with
a little bit more into details about this.
The fact that I can touch this glass and feel it, this is an electrical impulse that goes from my fingertips to my brain to tell me that I've got a glass. I can feel the glass. Everything's electrical. Everything you experience is electrical. And there's also a theory that the whole universe is electrical. The sun is electrical. Every relationship is electrical.
So that means that nothing is physical.
Well, look, what is physicality?
I've had 9 car accidents, believe it or not. Somebody wants to get rid of me, and the last one was so bad that I would have probably left for good this body. But there came, believe it or not, when I opened up my eyes after being 20 minutes unconscious in a crushed car, all of a sudden I look, and there's a little entity, no hair, no teeth, giving prana healing to me and my body. And I just, just out of...
What did it look like?
It was about 1 meter high and no hair around.
Well, an interdimensional being or extraterrestrial?
Well, I don't know which, but I would think that it was extraterrestrial. And I knew that it's helping me. In fact, it saved my life because I didn't know I was bleeding so badly inside that I would have probably died.
Like they call those gray aliens?
Well, in a way, it looked a little bit like it, but it was very positive. And in America, they say grays are bad and, they're raping you and whatever. No, this being saved my life.
What are your thoughts on the theory that reptilians are working with our governments behind the scenes, top elite factions of the government?
If that's true, that would imply immediately that there's a cooperative situation going on between parts of the U.S. military and ETs. And that's a big exopolitical question and a huge public relations problem for the government post-disclosure. However, not surprisingly, here's one other factor you can't dismiss. The extraterrestrials are capable of making you see anything they want you to see.
So it's like shape-shifting that people talk about.
No, I'm not saying they're shape-shifting. I'm saying that they're able to put in your mind that image. They're there. They're just standing there. ETs, just regular old ET. But you're seeing Minnie Mouse, Mickey Mouse, or Goofy, or whatever.
It's like a projection.
It's a projection. It's a manipulation of the mind, but it's pretty sophisticated, and they can do that. So could they make a contactee see another ET in the room, but see him as a Air Force officer in full uniform? Yes, they could.
The Zionist organization, most of it was the labor Zionists at that point in Germany left, made a deal with the Nazis, sent 10,000 to Israel. Those who refused the deals are the ones who ended up in the concentration camps. The thing that the controversial part of this, most controversial part, is of course the fact that Adolf Hitler was himself the product of a Sabbatean Frankist ritual in 1888.
And possibly a Rothschild also.
And possibly also. And then you have, aside from that, the fact that the Holocaust was widely criticized, this name, by Rabbi Unterman, for example, which the late Rabbi Unterman was a very big researcher of the Sabbatean Frankist thing. And he was the one who also excommunicated Henry Kissinger in the second half of the 70s. This was the excommunication of Henry Kissinger by the Rabbinical Council of Rabbi Antelman.
But many people also say that the reptilians and the archons, demons and all of that, are actually the same being, or that the archons who are primarily interdimensional or only interdimensional can actually enter a reptilian being in the same way that it can enter a human being or any other being.
Absolutely. All the variations can and do exist. This is why I'm just being a bit more precise with the terms, because when you resume things that way, unfortunately, it's not respecting the fact that there are also other variations and who are not necessarily bad. To answer, do the archons come from source? There is nothing in the cosmos that is not natural. And what is their purpose? Here, I'm going to answer as a natural scientist from the biology perspective. There's the whole mechanism, okay? There are herbs, there are herbivores, those that eat the herbivores, and then in the end, the mushroom who breaks everything down, and then the plants the next year, next spring, use the thing. Nature is the entirety of this mechanism. I'd heard a few years ago that in Japan, suddenly in the sea, there were giant, jellyfish that had suddenly sprung out of seemingly nowhere in the millions. This is one example among so many others of nature's mechanism. When one aspect of the balance, a wee aspect, is destroyed, is changed, nature has the grand equalizer thing, and something will spring out that was not there before. What is the purpose of all those life forms that feed off energy? You would know that if you travel in space with spaceships, there are life forms everywhere. Whistleblowers describe beautifully the way that as soon as there is a sun, then there's streaks of energy, then there's all kinds of life forms that live in space and feed off that. Likewise, life forms feed off them, and in the end, energy is this cycle of things. If you take one aspect out, something else will adapt, evolve, so that the grand equalizer is always kept.
So we need these bad entities. We need this for experience. In order to experience the good and the bad, we need to experience the bad in order to understand the good.
Because they are young life forms, so to speak, on the grander scale of things, they're not very evolved. They're amongst precisely the lower levels, which, as you know, is 4D, 3D. That is the lower levels per se.
Who was responsible for 9/11? Was that Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden?
19 Arabs with box cutters did not divert 4 commercial airliners from their flight path, including sending one into the wall of the Pentagon, the most secure building on the face of this earth, airspace and land space. This was an act that could only be done with the aid of government intelligence services and government experts. This is not a private job by a bunch of Saudis hanging out at a strip joint in Florida the day before, drinking and carousing and so forth, and then going up to Boston and kidnapping these 4 planes. This is a joke. I mean, this is bad B-grade movie stuff. Hollywood wouldn't even.
But a lot of people in this world believe it.
Well,
they think that
a lot of people believe in the tooth fairy. I mean, what can I say?
Psyops. So how do you do that? You start controlling different areas of life.
And psyops is psychological operations.
Yeah, they play with your mind. So how can they get into your mind? What areas? I would suggest media. That's a good one. They've taken over that they control so many parts of media, film and the film industry, because what do we love to see? Films. So in there, they've taken over. If you look at Hollywood, it's unreal, the control there, BBC, these areas. Then music, because that's how you get the youth, the different groups, how to control them. You have problem children or people that don't follow your agenda, you take them out. Boom. Many rock artists and stuff have been sort of becoming a threat or been sacrificed. Boom, 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 boom.
In 2016, we saw an enormous amount of celebrities who died.
Yeah, so sad. It's going in waves like this. And it just goes on like that. You just politicians, banks, the military-industrial complex, media, music, film are some of the main areas that they control. Also, they go in through religion, and then they infiltrate organizations that are well-meaning to start with, But as soon as they start making a difference, they just infiltrate them. If you are not aware of these things, this might sound like absolute madness. Once you start going into it in great detail, you will see that these areas tie together very, very much so. So after the JFK assassination, it was almost like this power structure that took over just went wild. They went into power, the highway was open, and they started going in all different directions. The military-industrial complex gone totally wild with the Vietnam War. At the same time, they needed to control the opposition. They needed to defuse opposition to these war things. So how did they do that? One of the things that are coming out more and more is through music, through different groups that apparently some of them were created there to divert the attention.
Yeah, you have the Freemasons. You have the Freemasons.
Yeah,
right?
but the Freemasons are a little bit different. You have to go really high up in the ranks, right, to have that position of power. Because a lot of ordinary Freemasons, they do very good charity work and
Absolutely.
are not aware of these things.
Absolutely.
And if they were, they would not be very happy with the situation.
You have two what do you call it? Two strains of Freemasons, right? When you go up the grades, at a certain point you are asked to either spit or stand on the Bible or something like that. And if no matter what you do, they say it's a good job. So let's
Really?
say, yeah. So if you say no, I do not want to spit on the Bible, then they say good job because we are Christian and it's so good that you're doing that. And then you are with the people who have no clue what's going on. And then you can grow in the ranks and so on.
Do you know this for a fact, that is happening within the Freemason society?
It is for a fact in the sense that there are so many whistleblowers and so many testaments from 33rd degree Freemasons who have become whistleblowers. So you can study this. These are facts.
That they have to spit on the Bible?
Something like that, or stamp on it, or do something which is something you wouldn't do normally out of respect for your belief, right?
So what do people say happen if they actually go along with
this?
Yeah,
if you do that, then you are on the gravy train to where eventually you will move up in the ranks and you will end up having a lot of power in the end. But the thing is with the Freemasons, their motto is as above, so below. So you're allowed to do a lot of beautiful things as long as you make sure that you also do something that is not so nice, yeah?
But not on the lower levels, huh?
I'm not sure about the lower levels. Probably not. Probably
did anyone ever approach you to become a Mason?
No, I don't. No, they never did.
But you were sort of programmed to be like a spy for espionage or something. You had this photographic memory. Does that mean that if you looked at a book for a few seconds or a few moments, then you already knew what was on the page? And you could remember it?
Yes. Part of my training was I have a photographic, audiographic memory. So even when drugged, I would record things and be able to retrieve them. So I suspect I was going to be used politically in the honeypot role to probably collect information. I'm also grew up trilingual, so there were certain things, that's my suspicion. I mean, it didn't work out. Here I am, speaking up against them. But I believe they take one's innate abilities and enhance them, but they can, through what we call trauma-based mind control, they have discovered that if you heavily traumatize an individual, they will fracture. They will have when you go into shock, it's like a blank slate. So they can program this alter to do anything they want. They can create super soldiers, they can create psychic assassins, they can create anything they want. And then that's a part and an alter of the person. And so the front personality will have no awareness of that. And then that part can be triggered to do a specific task. So for example, all these lone wolves that have assassinated, VIP people, they're actually MK Ultra. They have a programmed part. They were given a cue. They go do the event. But then if they're questioned, they literally, once their front alter is back, they don't remember it. They don't know. So trauma-based mind control has been, this is something the Nazis studied. They brought over to America. Mengele was one of the foremost people with this. And
even they've added, so SRA was, let's say, the first form of mind control. Then psychiatry and the military kind of got involved, and they have slowly perfected it, and they have studied what it does to people like myself and other people I know who are survivors. But they do this to the collective too. So collectively, these people, they have a chessboard of the globe, and they create all the wars. They fund both sides. It's for an agenda. So war, for example, is a collective trauma. Poverty and scarcity, they're engineered, they're not natural. They create trauma. There's psyops like 9/11, that creates trauma. PSYOP creates trauma. Those are, by the way, satanic rituals on the collective of society.
Well, I'll start with my definition of United Nations Agenda 21, Sustainable Development, which is the blueprint. It is the action plan to inventory and control all land, all water, all minerals, all plants, all animals, all construction, all means of production, all energy, all education, all law enforcement and judicial systems, all information, all food, and all human beings on the planet. It is an inventory and control plan. It is totally comprehensive, and it is not some dusty old plan. It is a real plan. It's affecting you right now. There's a good chance that you were in one of the 178 nations, plus the Vatican, which agreed to this plan in 1992. And it's a global plan. It's implemented locally. And of course, it's called Agenda 21. You know that the 21st century is a 100-year period. And 2030, Agenda 2030, is a 30-year milestone within the agenda for the 21st century.
You've spoken openly about being a lesbian and also being a feminist. So, is the UN Agenda 21 and UN Agenda 2030 plan also part of orchestrating the so-called transgender agenda and post-feminism, or what some people call neo-feminism, under the guise of positive equality between the sexes, but really an agenda to separate the two sexes, male and female, empowering women, disempowering men, and creating several hundreds of different sexual identities?
No, it's a total manipulation. Gay people are being used, and this is of course I see this myself, certainly, and I've been watching it for years.
Is that also maybe part of a depopulation plan?
We're talking about destroying everything, where you literally don't even know what sex you are, where you have to apologize, where I have to say I'm not a woman, I'm a cis woman.
So is this part of an imbalanced feminist political agenda created by the same people who are behind the whole Club of Rome initiative, maybe other secret societies, and UN Agenda 21?
Yeah, boy, does that suck,
The elite are riding on top of a natural cycle, taking advantage of the cyclic nature of workings in our solar system and universe to then continue their agendas, put more control down. And for me, I go into it, I say, all right, let's say you did reduce the world population down to 500 million. And then they have the utopian dream and the technocratic society, and everything's monitored, tracked, and traced, and everybody's on a social credit score, and you're like controlled to the nth degree where you can't even step a half a foot out your door without being monitored, and everything's known about you, and too, your vital signs, your blood, your stress level, everything's known about you. And then what? And then what? Really, and then what? Because it only can go to that point, and then what? And that's what baffles me, is when we get to the end, then what?
Can they control our souls ultimately, do you think? If we have a soul at the point of, death, when our souls leave the body.
You've got to think about, does mind create reality, or are they trying to get you in to believe that at that moment of death, you're going to be trapped in that computer, versus thinking about, light source can grab me back because it's so much more infinitely powerful than anything we could ever create. And I don't care how advanced the technology is, because you mentioned it seems like even in the ancient cultures that this reset, this rodeo, for better term for cowboys out there, has gone on again and again and again. Well, if that's the truth, then that means a more ancient civilization has survived every single reset and is still in control. So how many millions of years has that gone on? And I don't care how many millions of years you are into the future with tech, light source is going to be more powerful than that. Because magic is only technology you don't understand.
You worked as a spy for the CIA. Please tell us a little bit about your history. What was your work for the CIA, and what led you on the path to the field of truth research, revealing secrets about the system, as it were?
Well, first off, I'm not revealing secrets. I'm revealing truths that are not secret. I grew up as the son of an oil engineer in Asia and South America, had a very good education, decided I'd become too intellectual, so I joined the Marine Corps, and from the Marine Corps as an infantry officer who spoke a foreign language, the CIA picked me up. I actually applied, very competitive, 25,000 apply, 65 were accepted that year. And I thought I was serving my country. It's like being a Jesuit, you don't question it. But over time, especially after I was asked by the Marine Corps to come out and create the Marine Corps intelligence activity, I discovered spies don't know anything. At least in the American system, the spies provide, according to General Tony Zinni, who was then the Central Command general, less than 4% of what the president, cabinet members, and others need. Less than 4% at a cost of $100 billion a year. Most of the intelligence world, the secret intelligence world, is occupied with regime change, drone assassination, black prisons with rendition and torture, and basically bribing people to betray their country and do bad things. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is decision support. That's what intelligence is supposed to be like. Intelligence is not about secret collection at great expense. It's supposed to be about answering specific questions at the strategic, operational, tactical, and technical levels. And my last book, which went to the White House, is called Reinventing Intelligence, 30 Years in the Wilderness.
I mean, you've had some quite successful books with this series on the Illuminati. I mean, you're talking about this, your own religion, or, well, it used to be because you're a Jew, right?
No, Jews, the Jewish religion is basically buy low, sell high.
And what can you
Those are Jewish values: buy low, sell high. Do you hear me? And now everybody's a Jew because everyone's in the market now trying to buy low, sell high. They basically induct us all into their satanic cult. We're all Jews.
So what made you so angry?
What made me so angry? Seeing civilization going down the toilet. That should inspire a reaction. So we're all going to get our comeuppance. We're going to get exactly what we deserve.
But what about all the Jews also maybe watching this and knowing that you're also a Jew? I mean, you're not talking about the specific individual, obviously. You're talking about the Zionist control system, really, and the people behind that, the elite circles, right?
Yeah, and what I emphasize in my book is that Trump, Putin, and Netanyahu belong to Habad. Habad is a satanic cult that is actually openly dedicated to causing a social catastrophe in order to destroy the old order. And unfortunately, Habad defines Judaism because the Rothschilds seem to follow its dictates.
People just got to choose whether they want to choose the light or they want to choose the dark. And there's a sense of free will in that, and it's the old saying as well, Lucas, like, let those who have the ears to hear, and we won't be able to reach everyone. And there's certainly free will in the equation.
But can we live on the same planet then in the aftermath or whatever will happen? I mean, and if we've also been talking to a lot of UFO researchers and people who know about alien existence and ETs, and they a lot of them also say, well, there are good aliens working for the greater good, but we would really love them to intervene at the moment, wouldn't we?
The scientific community is saying that these tests are not valid, they're not correct, and this is a huge problem worldwide, and it's become one of the biggest studies, I think, in history to find out if, in fact, those studies are accurate. If they're accurate, if they're precise, which I don't believe they are. I believe this is a fear-based plague, so to speak. But, you know, we're all in this together, and we're going to see what's going to roll out in the next 3 to 5 months. But
why do you think they created this, then?
It's a global reset in our economy. No more cash. Suppression of the middle class. What the globalists detest most is the middle class. The middle class are someone that threatens them because they're living their lifestyle, but not really, but in a way. So the middle class, they don't want the middle class. They want poor people, which are slaves, or rich people. They don't need the middle class. And as we all see around the world, it's small businesses. It's middle class. When you remove the middle class, then you're going to have a two-class system, which is ultimately what happens in any communist society around the world through time, through history. I don't care if it's Stalin or Nazis. You have rich and poor. You do not have a middle class. The middle class' biggest feature, the reason why we all are in this time and age, we're the biggest middle class, population-wise, worldwide, and it threatens them. So they want to, I think, suppress us, annihilate us, to put it out. But
what about depopulation?
The depopulation program, which was carved in 12 languages in the Georgia Guidestones, funded by Ted Turner, who owns CNN. I mean, these aren't contradictions. I mean, these people have a goal and a reason to their participation in these functions, and to and some of them put it out there without worry because they're so arrogant.
So do you believe they want to take out billions of people? Some people talk about them only wanting about 500 million. Or
that's correct, in the Georgia Guidestones.
Yeah.
Besides the Georgia Guidestones, there's Operation Lockstep, Rockefeller, and then Bill Gates, which was the Event 201. And in both those analogies, and both those theories, are about depopulation, about plagues, about the fact that they need to control the people and to get rid of quite a lot of majority that was basically middle class, that was not needed, elderly. And then this plague comes around that
was really... it Kissinger who coined the phrase useless eaters?
Correct. It was.
Charming, huh?
So who are they exactly, the Council of Seven? Who are those beings? Are they, let's say, demons?
That's one way of putting it. From someone who's been brought up in a Christian background, that is, you could say that, yes.
The Muslims call them the jinn. And in the Gnostic writings, they talk about archons.
Yeah, that's correct. These entities they're not as high up the hierarchy as you would like to think. They think a lot of themselves. A lot of the ruling elite and the people that worship them in this world, they think a lot of them. They think they're like these invincible gods. But they're much lower down the ranks than most people realize.
So are they working with the governments of the world? Now we're talking about the top elite factions of the secret government, so to speak.
These are 6 families. I don't know the names of them. I can tell you for sure, 100% fact, the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds are employees of these 6 families.
So the 6 families you're talking about are not part of the known Illuminati families that we have come to know.
One family is in charge of all the finances. Another family is in charge of all the food, all the agriculture and horticulture and all that. Another family's in charge of all the pharmaceutical. Another family's in charge of the military. Another family's in charge of the technology. So they're specializing in all the 6 main areas of life on the planet.
Isn't that kind of what the Illuminati is all about? Really, being more sort of into the occult.
They certainly use occult symbolism, or did, as I say, you know, the Illuminati of the time. There are many Masonic orders that use occult symbolism. They may, on the other hand, be horrified if you then implied they were doing blood sacrifices. I think most people who are involved with secret societies, A, certainly don't believe that's going on, B, probably wouldn't know anything about the darker side of it. It would be those nearer the top of the pyramid who would perhaps be involved with the more dubious things. And people
well, ordinary Masons would probably not be involved in any of that.
There
or
are
know
many
anything
good and
about
fine ordinary Masons who are lovely people who just like some nice dinners and a spot of local influence.
Of course.
And I think that's the reality of it. And I think we have to be careful in the alternative world that we don't just brand everybody with the same thing. But there are clearly secret societies higher up that do have great influence and do take occult symbolism seriously. Whether they do the blood sacrifice, that's something I leave for other people to discuss. I don't know. But the fact that people believe that they might is a worrying sign. And it's a sign of how little trust we have in our leaders. The fact that some people think they would be capable of that, I think is a shame that it's got to that stage, that we trust them so little that we think they might actually be doing that. And that is not a sustainable situation. For them...
What would be a sustainable situation? What would be?
I personally think that the only way forward is for there to be more openness. I mean, the irony is if the ruling elite were actually to openly declare their intentions, there might be quite a lot of people who would say, oh, fair enough, all right, I'll go with that. And yet, it's
do you think so?
That, yes, I do. I'm not saying I would, but I think there are some people who would be okay with it if they were included in on it and made to feel respected enough that the intentions have been declared. It's because it's plainly secret. It's because it's plainly doing things that are not very nice behind people's backs that I think really causes the upset. Now, obviously, if they were to declare that they were making blood sacrifices or whatever, that's going to be a whole other thing.
I didn't come to the conclusions about some reptilian race manipulating human society because of Arizona Wilder. She was a contributor to that information source, but only a contributor. She wasn't the reason. I don't work like that. But what happened was that Brian Desborough was basically a scientist. I think he worked for Boeing. And he set out in the 60s, because he was a Christian, to prove that Christianity was true. And it was historical fact. He said to me, in no time I realized it wasn't. And he went through this great transformation of, well, if I've believed in Christianity all my life, and now I realize so quickly when I just check it that the historical basis is wrong, what the heck else is happening that I believe that is actually not true? And as synchronicity would have it, he called me sometime later and he said, I've met somebody and you ought to meet. And by this time, the reptilian thing had already come into my life, not in America even, but in Britain, when people were telling me about this, but also in America, because how this started for me, because my life, when I had my own big awakening experience in 1990-91, my life became this synchronistic journey where coincidence was happening all the time. And I went out to America in 1996 and talking to nobody. And as I traveled around a different place, talking next to nobody every day, in a period of about 15 days, I met about 12 separate people in different places who told me the same thing, that they'd experienced seeing someone look human, then turn into a reptilian type figure, and then back again.
One was Kathy O'Brien, also, huh?
Yeah, but she experienced it, but she read it in another way. But no, Kathy O'Brien was much earlier. These 12 people were people I'd met before. And what you do is, when they tell you this, what you don't do, unless you absolutely know from your own previous experience that it's true or not true, you don't say load of rubbish. You say, interesting, back burner.
Let's talk about it. Is that
Let's
what you
talk
mean?
about it. Let's question it. Let's see what evidence there is. And then let's put it on the back burner and see what comes up. Mm-hmm. And then you meet someone else. Then you meet someone else, someone else, someone else, someone else. Then you go to Australia and meet other people. And this is all before The Biggest Secret came out, which is the first time I'd gone public in any of this. So these people were coming at me, telling me their stories, blind. They had no idea, because I didn't tell them, that I'd come across previous stories that were like they were telling me. So you build up this body of evidence, you see.
Right.
And because you're not having a preordained belief system going, no, you let it form. So by the time I came across Arizona Wild, and the reason that Brian Desborough called me and said, you ought to come and meet this lady I've met, is because he knew that we were talking about the reptilians before her. So I went over, and she was incredibly compelling. She showed me some of the ritual paraphernalia that she'd used in the rituals. And her name, she called herself then Jennifer Green, because she said that she had been put under mind control and trauma-based mind control, which breaks up the mind into a honeycomb of compartments, which is how it's basically done, by Joseph Mengele. Joseph Mengele, the angel of death in the concentration camps in Germany, in Auschwitz. And that...
Operation Paperclip.
Yeah, he'd been brought over with well over 1,000
Yes.
Nazi scientists under Project Paperclip. And he operated in America under the name Dr. Green. So she took the name from that, really. And by that time, she had dyed her hair like a purple color, because she's actually naturally blonde.
Yeah.
Because blonde-haired, blue-eyed genetics is kind of the one they like to use
What they
most.
supposedly use for these MK Ultra presidential models.
Yeah, there is this mind control project which came to light, and there were public hearings about it. All the real stuff was suppressed, mind. And the person who was put in charge of investigating it was Nelson Rockefeller, governor of New York 4 times, and oh dear, and he was actually appointed by President Ford, who was an operative in MK Ultra earlier on.
Now, the horror stories that I have also read, and one who told it is now dead, and the other one sits in jail. They skin children because the trauma is so terrible that they switch into another frequency, another timeline.
They skin the body?
Now yes. Not the whole body, but a little bit. You don't have to take much that it hurts. They also put them into ceiling in a cage, naked, and beam with an electromagnetic frequency. That, of course, is terrible also. Now, these are extremes, but these are reported. And like I said, those two who reported them, one is dead and one is in jail. Now, that kind of mind control, I think, is horrendous because it's done mostly to children.
It's to create a compartmentalized state so that one side of the brain doesn't know what the other. It's like making
multiple personalities.
What is
That's
called
right.
DID, dissociative identity disorder today, isn't it?
Right.
They have different personalities and they create different personalities within
and
a
one
person.
one is a killer. And when the killing happens, then they switch to another one and they know nothing about the killing. And they deny that they have done something. Now why, I'm again saying, why are there people and scientists, medical doctors who are involved with this? oh, it is for science, you know, for evolvement. Now, for me, this is not evolvement. We're going down the drain as human beings by torturing.
But if they can get, say, something done for them, they could like do a lone wolf kind of experiment, create a split personality, couldn't they, for a specific use?
That's why they do it. They want killers.
Why do they want
exactly?
killers?
Exactly. I don't understand their reasoning.
When you talk about the British royal family, which of course is very shocking to a lot of people, and that's why David Icke and others have been ridiculed for years. But I mean, when did you see them? Why were you privy to have this experience?
I was trafficked all over the world. Again, especially when I was being groomed to be a handler, I was brought all over the place, all over the world. And underground and off planet. I was brought like to a lot of places that people usually don't see. So one of those places was the UK, and I do have some personal experiences with the British royals in person. And then in New York, just at home, many people came internationally from different satanic families and different political groups, satanic political groups, to prey on children and to have meetings between each other, international meetings. One place that I can name, which I haven't named before, is the UN. The UN is a satanic organization. So I'd be brought over, to the East Midtown in New York City is where the UN building is. And I'd be exposed to all sorts of international leaders who were either full-blooded reptilians or hybrids who would also shapeshift. Yeah.
So now we're talking about people on a political level or a part of the royal bloodline, because a lot of these so-called, heads of states and all of that, or prime ministers, and they're known to just be pawns and just be there for a few years and be possible, of course, a member of the Bilderberg group and chosen and all of that. But, a lot of people say they're just part of it, but they're not really in the know. But you say a lot of them are in the know, and some are even reptilians.
Yeah. Some are pawns, some are more active. It really depends on the individual. I can say, I encountered quite a few political types who seem to be in control of themselves and participating in a more conscious way. Yeah.
You were abused sexually by these men or women? Or both?
Yeah, both. People are raised very frequently to be bisexual in a cult context, whatever their natural orientation is, gay, straight, whatever. Everybody who goes through this experience is intensively trained to open up their sexuality and be attracted to lots of different genders and ages and all that stuff. So just to say that. One person I can name specifically is Boutros Ghali. He was at the UN, and he was
the general secretary of the UN, wasn't he?
Yeah, Secretary General, yeah.
So he abused you sexually as a child?
Yeah. And he was involved very deeply in rituals. I would have to chant his name. And that was a whole, like, Boutros Ghali, Boutros Ghali. And so that I do have memories where that's happening. So it's very personal sometimes.
My God. Well, and who else did you see some of the, you saw the British royal family, maybe not the UN, I would expect, but you saw some other political figures. How about the American presidents?
Yeah. The Clintons were there, definitely. Saw most of the Clinton family. I was a little bit close to Chelsea Clinton for a while. She was also being used inside of this system. I can also name the Schumers, Chuck Schumer, Amy Schumer. These are New York politicians. I don't know if they're known internationally.
Sure they are.
But yeah. they were at these rituals as well. Yeah, and parts of the Trump family there too. So it's not a Republican or a Democrat thing, a right or a left thing. Everybody's
So
involved
the
in this.
Trump family was there as well. And you
Yeah.
speak specifically about Donald Trump.
Yeah, I have memories of him being at these parties.
So Claire Edwards, you have been working at the United Nations for many, many years, and you have been very active for several years now, exposing what is actually going on at the United Nations, but also your very thorough and amazing work shedding light on 5G and electromagnetic radiation.
Well, today we went to the office of the President of Austria, and we delivered 2 documents, a notice of liability and a document describing the genocide that has been taking place this year in 2020. We are invoking our sovereignty as human beings, not to plead, not to beg, not to bring legal cases, not to provide more information, but to tell the perpetrators of this genocide, which is ongoing, that it is over for them. You have played your game and you have lost, because everybody understands what you are doing. It doesn't matter how much money you have, it doesn't matter how much power you have, it doesn't matter how much you control social media and mainstream media. We know your game. So it is over for you. We are invoking our sovereignty as human beings, and we are ordering you to stop this now. You are terrorizing the earth. You are terrorizing populations across the world, and we will not tolerate this.
Now you delivered the NOL, the Notice of Liability, to the President of Austria. And that went well, didn't it?
It went incredibly well. It was a very good result. And what it showed to me, due to the reaction of the man, the portier, who took on the document and gave us the receipt of receiving it, he was incredibly friendly, and this is exactly the basis and the basic energy from where this document is coming from. It's coming from a place of love. There is nothing to fight against, because it's human beings that are trapped in this system that's run by a bunch of dark occultists, psychopaths, and through a notice of liability, that is the self-regulating mechanism under natural law, which frees human beings from that trap they're in the
So
system.
do you think you're in a position to have a press conference already?
Absolutely, I'd totally go for it, because I've been working on this the last 4 years.
I've only had a couple of clients that I've worked with the reptilian issue, where I've actually seen the reptilian, and it was a shapeshifter as opposed to a person with an overlay of a reptilian. Like, it was a reptilian pretending to be a person. So I've had a couple of those experiences. Also, about aliens in general, I think there is a not so good tendency in the New Age and truther movement to believe that all alien beings are benevolent and that they are coming to save us. And I think we need to use more discernment. I'm not saying there are no benevolent beings. I can't say that for sure. But I think, like, let's be real here. There are so many agendas upon agendas upon agendas, spiritual and alien and human. Dark force is human.
How did you communicate with it? Was it in front of you? Did you hear it? Was it feeling?
All around. It was all around me, pretending to be multiple beings. And this is something that we need to understand about jinn that really fools people. They think if there's a council of beings that appears to them, how can that be one jinn? But I've seen that so many times with myself and my clients. So it was surrounding my bed. Okay, so I'm sitting up in bed, and it's like all of these alien council beings saying, we are the council and we are here to share these messages.
So there
with
were
you.
many entities, it
Many.
felt like that, around the bed.
Around the bed.
We're trying to
Around the
communicate
bed.
with you.
And I said, I don't trust you. I don't think you are who you say that you are, and go away. And it kept saying, you can trust us. You can trust us. You need to believe. And I'm like, nope, nope, nope. And then in the morning, so then I went to sleep. In the morning, it appeared again, and it appeared as a group of demons.
I'd like to tell you a very personal and strange otherworldly experience I had, which actually led me to create the platform Age of Truth TV with Lauke and our team. It was sort of groundbreaking for me, and I call it the fateful night. And I've only spoken about it privately, I think, to my close personal friends, because it was a terrifying event, and it's very difficult to talk about it and maybe be credible, but among kindred spirits here, and I think you've experienced a lot, even much more crazy stuff, but this certainly was extraordinary. So years ago, I was in another relationship to a woman who also dabbled somewhat in the spiritual, and although something about her energy felt a little bit different. But one night, as we lay in bed in complete darkness, she suddenly said out loud, "Did you hear that? Something is in the room." So I totally brushed it off and suggested that, she just had a nightmare and fallen asleep and, whatever that was. There was nothing there, was no sound, I didn't feel anything, and nothing was there. But she insisted, and she said that she felt a presence, and she could feel that there were some cloaked, hooded figures that surrounded the bed, probably maybe 6 of them. They were faceless and ancient, and they were trying to reach me. So then she said, they want to invite you into their circle. And she did not know about these things. So, and she tried to hear what they were saying. Obviously, they could reach her or speak to her on that frequency level that she was on. And she said, they want to invite you into their circle, and they call it illumination, and then she said the Illuminati. And that moment she said that, terror sort of went through me, absolutely. And she didn't know about all of these things. And it was as if some external force was hijacking her energy and then suddenly reaching into mine. So I turned on the light, and no one was there, and nothing was there, but it felt like something had shifted. But the next night I was in bed alone by myself, and the same thing returned. I felt precisely what my ex-girlfriend had felt the night before. Those entities, hooded, faceless men, were again pressing for my attention, trying to lure me into their tangled web. So this indescribable terror and panic totally washed over me. I had not experienced having panic attacks or anything prior to that, so this was very new to me. It was a feeling I'd never experienced, and I don't like to experience it again, actually. So, but this, as I said, this presence felt like an external force. So I tried to sleep calmly with the light on, but then suddenly I felt a powerful presence in the bedroom. And I was laying under my duvet with my head on the pillow, and I slowly opened my eyes. And what I saw at that moment manifesting before me was the most horrifying and horrific sight I've ever seen in my life. At the far end of my bedroom, near the wardrobe, stood this absolutely nightmarish creature, an alien-like monster, grotesque, and this horrifying, demonic face. And it surely looked absolutely like a Draco reptilian ET that we've talked about so many times on our show since then, but the platform was not created. So this menacing reptilian or archon or whatever suddenly moved towards me. And in some kind of surge of strength that I didn't know I had, because I don't have that, I flew out from the bed and I performed a mid-air somersault, something I am absolutely under no circumstances able to do. And it's not physically possible, and it didn't feel physical. But I landed on my feet and I roared like a wild lion, charging at this reptilian devil and shouting it directly in its face. I had, I don't know, it felt like an unknown strength and an ability I certainly do not have in ordinary life. So, but when I roared at this beast, it suddenly absolutely disappeared, vanished, like retreating back to this dimension from where it had manifested. So alone again in my bedroom, I could hear my neighbors began to stir and knocking on the walls, thinking maybe I was being attacked or something. So I just had to act. I was totally shaken, so I had to act, and I just shouted, ha 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 ha, how funny, oh my God, that was hilarious, that was really funny, how great. And then I was just shaking, and then it stopped, so they wouldn't call for help or the police or something. But then I realized something very profound and pivotal in my world. That was that I had confronted some kind of force of darkness, and I had survived. Not by running, but by standing tall and actually forcing myself to confront this without knowing how or why, and facing this darkness, whatever that entity was. And I truly believe on some level that I was helped by, well, benevolent forces, because it felt like that, guides from the light. So that night absolutely changed me, and it was like a portal had opened, and of course it needed to be closed, because suddenly I could feel a lot of things. As a child I had a lot of clairvoyant abilities, I felt a lot of things, and I had to close all of that down. But this ex-girlfriend, she had obviously a way to get into my frequency field, which otherwise had been, well, protected. So with the help of shamanic and spiritual friends, we cleansed and cleared all that energy, and I didn't sleep in the darkness for a month, but all was better. So I didn't experience being targeted until during the lockdown, during the COVID era, where countless of our shows, maybe 40 shows, were taken down from our platform and removed. But shortly after that fateful, very difficult, horrific night incident in 2010 or 2011 in the beginning, a friend contacted me with the news that David Icke was coming to Denmark to do one of his 10-hour deep dive in-depth lectures. And he asked me if I would want to interview him, because he knew that I had interviewed celebrities and movers and shakers, whatever. And of course, David Icke is probably the most prominent name in the field of truth research. So we contacted the event organizer that organized for me to bring a camera crew and a TV crew to his hotel. And that was when I got to know David Icke. And then we put that show up on one channel, my own channel, and it was removed, the entire channel, actually. I lost everything. But then we said, oh my God, there's something to this. We want to create a platform. We felt that something really was so important to get out. So that was when we created Age of Truth TV. And we uploaded that David Icke thing, and then we began traveling and doing all of these great shows with all these amazing people, and it's been absolutely wonderful. So I do feel that that terrible night, again, something bad can happen, like a divorce, a wonderful marriage in many ways, but then a bad divorce can lead to an investigation, terrible incident, meeting this, being faced with this, whatever, reptilian, whatever it was. And I don't ever want to see that again, thank you very much. But but it led to us doing that. And so that was absolutely extraordinary. And I'd like to show a little clip from that very, very first episode we did. Lauke, can you find that?
There's one technique that people have to know, and if they know it, they'll read the world in a completely different way. It's something that I call problem, reaction, solution. You want to change the world in a way that you know that if you openly announce it, you're going to get a massive reaction from the public. No, we're not having that. So you don't openly announce it. You play problem, reaction, solution. Stage one, you covertly create a problem. You make sure someone or something else is blamed for it. You tell the people the version of the problem that you want them to believe, and the mainstream media passes that from the authorities to the people unquestioned. And then still writes journalist on its tax form. At stage two, what you're looking at is a reaction from the public to the problem. It's a reaction of do something, something must be done, or at least, well, we don't like what they want to do, but what else can happen in given what's happening? And so then those who've created the problem got the reaction, do something, or we'll let you do something because we can only see that as the answer. They then openly offer the solutions to the problems they've created, which are changes in legislation, they take away basic freedoms, they're invading countries, and all the rest of it.
Well, you know what, that brings me to my next thing.
Right.
A little present I have for you.
Oh, no.
Because you speak a lot about the New World Order.
Right.
And I have a little present for you. It's a $1 bill.
Yeah.
And on the back of the dollar bill, there is, in fact, what you just said, there is a picture of a pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top there is this, the eye, an all-seeing eye. And underneath it says, Novus Ordo Seclorum, which actually means New World Order.
This was put on the dollar bill in about 1933 by a guy called Franklin Roosevelt, who was like all these presidents. He was a front man for this hidden hand. When the few want to control the many, they have to centralize decision making. The more they centralize decision making, the more power the few have over the many. Their nightmare is diversity of decision making because you can't control that sense.
So we have democracy in all countries, in the Western world at least, huh?
Sorry, I came over all faint when you said that. This is one of the great myths, Lucas.
So, Lucas, you have to understand, I've followed David Icke's work for probably close to 20 years, all right? But I don't talk about that because a lot of stuff is very difficult for people to digest. And when I'm dealing with people, when they've got cancer or they've had a heart attack or they've got, I'm bringing a child with autism, it is not my duty or obligation to change their belief system. My job is to get them better. And so I have to bring them in a place where they understand and help them to get to that point. And sometimes you can't, you have to pick your battle. So my battle with them is to change their belief system and what the outcome is possible for them. I don't go into many of these other things because it's actually an individual belief system and I don't impose my belief system on anyone. But when it comes to the future of the human race, I had to speak up. I was hoping that somebody else would do it because I'm just too busy for that anyway. And now it's opened up this entire aspect. And yesterday on our live stream, I made this comment. I said, I'm not sure why this has happened because, I'm not a bikini model. And if I was in a bikini, it would be very disturbing for you to see that. So I don't know what clickbait, I don't know why this is happening. But if I were to guess, it would be that people are hungry for the truth and truth resonates at a frequency that is not something that can be covered up or hidden. And when people hear the truth, they gravitate to it. They need it. They want it. And we have been lied for tens of years, decades upon decades we've been lied to. And there's been an orchestration over the last...
Maybe thousands of years.
Well, that's true. For a few thousands of years, that's a very true statement. But especially in the last 20 years, 30 years with the advent of the initiative and all this stuff and the poisonings of our foods and altering and adjusting. I have a philosophy with 7 toxicities. I'm not going to go through those. There's a video out there on that. But of the 7 toxicities, they have hit us on the first 6. It's heavy metals, persistent organic pollutants, opportunistics, which are the bacteria, viruses, viruses that we would cover for all the 2. 4th is energetics. That's the technology we talked about. 5th is emotional, psychological. This is the fear mongering. Stay in your house, stay in your house. The sixth one is foods, not what we eat, but what we do to our foods, the radiation, genetic modification, pasteurization, homogenization. And the seventh one is spirituality. They have hit us on the first six of those toxicities, and they're trying to take us down. But where they will fail is on that seventh toxicity. Man is rising, man is awakening. And that's what this whole process is about. And so your words, the war on consciousness, that is very, very apropos. That is very accurate. And I'm going to steal that term. I'm just telling you right now.
Okay, that's fine. And they also talk about, of course, how this will affect the world economy, and that this was a plan from the beginning to crash the economy in a much bigger way than in 2008, more like the financial crash in 1929, the Great Depression that eventually led up to the Second World War. Could we say that this is World War III, just in a very different way, like a social experiment happening through social media, through the mainstream media, through fear-mongering, fear porn, collective mind control?
I'll tell you that, being able to see this information from a different perspective is partly because I'm a bit of an outsider. I'm not a virus researcher. I'm not beholden to any academic institution where I have to, maintain the paradigm that is present in the institution. So I can look at this material in a more objective, more big picture view. And I'm happy to have that luxury, to be able to do that. So I do have a lot of experience reading scientific papers and doing research. This all started when I was an undergraduate at MIT, and I worked in a couple of different labs doing different things. I also worked in the biotech industry, and I helped develop a molecular modeling program for a biotech company. And then I did a few different things. I worked in public health, so I was actually also doing the reporting, like epidemiology, collecting statistics for AIDS cases. This was in the early 90s. And I then was a physician assistant, and I worked in cancer medicine. So I have experience in that clinical realm before I went back to medical school in South Carolina. And then I decided to specialize in psychiatry. In the United States, there's some indication that the Federal Reserve, which is the private, banking system that creates the currency supply, may actually merge with the Treasury Department and become part of the government, which would mean that all the assets owned by the Federal Reserve would now be owned by the government. And if the government owns most of the corporate assets, then, that's the definition of a fascist economic system.
So we are seeing the New World Order, global government, a takeover happening at the moment, not even slowly, at rapid speed.
The elites, the 0.01%, the wealthier are getting much wealthier, and working people, I'm not talking about people who do not work. Marx called them the lumpen proletariat. Okay, I'm talking about people who do work, their income levels are going down massively. We've created an environment where money is not tied to labor anymore. It's tied to something ephemeral, right? That doesn't really exist, what you call inflation. So they created a situation where they must create fake problems to fake solutions because they cannot create real problems or real solutions because of their corruption. That's what's taken place. And so a guy like me running is a huge opportunity because it gives an opportunity for people to see what they deserve, right? What people have in this process, the elites have forced people to lower their standard and lower it, because they know that one day, at one time, I was in Africa, right? When you go to Africa, it's quite fascinating. You look around and you see the monkeys and you see all these animals, and you realize, Jesus Christ, we were out there at one time, with leeches and things, and we made it out of the jungles to slums and slums to this. So the elites, I believe, know something that, we can keep lowering the standards of these people. Okay, one day we'll put them in this, then we'll put them. They don't care. One day they'll be shitting outside because they know that as you lower people's standards, people get used to that. People are creatures of habit. So the fascinating question I have is, how low will they go to the standard? So they will live in their Elysiums and we will live in probably shitholes. Okay.
So Shiva, what are your thoughts on Bill Gates and how he could possibly be involved in all of this?
What we do know about Bill Gates is, he's trying to pretend or promote himself as a big genius now. He didn't create DOS. He stole it from another kid, paid him nothing, and essentially resold it. So he never wrote the first operating system, which was a basis of Microsoft.
Really?
No, he didn't. So that's what I'm wondering. People ask me whether I invented email, but no one questions this guy. Did you invent DOS? No, he didn't. He was basically at the right place at the right time because his mother was on the board of United Way. She was sitting, she knew the head of IBM. Her son was programming, and IBM said, "Oh, we're looking for an operating system." He knew some kid, I think in Seattle, who wrote it. He bought it from him and then sold it to IBM. Okay, so he didn't really write it. Okay, but no one questions it because he has a gazillion dollars. People will question whether I invented email because I don't have a gazillion dollars. I made a lot of money other ways, and the reason is because the copyright laws, going back to that, because the people in Congress were 15 years behind. It took them until 1994 to see the software should be patented. You see? So the point here is, at a very deep level, you take a guy like Bill Gates. He actually thinks he's better than everyone. Okay, his wife Melinda Gates. I remember many years ago, a friend of mine who had a friend go to Harvard Business School and was in the class with Melinda, and apparently she said to this woman that, I'm not going to marry anyone unless they're $50 million in net worth. Okay.
Wow.
This entire thing is a set of people who care about one thing, the almighty dollar, and that's it. Okay.
I would like to have some questions from the audience because so many people wrote in. So Lauke, if you want to go on now, and because we want to try and get as many questions from the audience as we can. Lauke, are you there?
Hi, Dr. Judy, and hello, everyone, and thank you so much for your great questions to Dr. Judy Mikovits. What is the effects of EMF radiation on the body?
The connection is where the EMF radiation separates, that frequency of 5G separates hemoglobin from iron. So when iron gets into the blood in the form of ferritin above a certain level, it causes the same cytokine storm, the same inflammatory immune response that the virus does. So they would synergize if you were infected, and certainly the influenza, even if they're not contaminated, which they are, those cause the same flame. So it's like throwing gasoline on the fire. So whereas you wouldn't get sick at all, as we know, most people without comorbidities don't even know the virus is cleared by a healthy immune response. You wouldn't get sick at all, but you would get sick if you got the or you were exposed to 5G and that ferritin level got high enough in your blood. And that would be the people that were infected, those 50 million Americans that are carriers of and around the world of the XMRVs.
We're talking about this great reset, and the world is dividing, and they are, they want to create this great reset. And perhaps it's not altogether a bad thing, because we do want the old system to fall, right?
My guess is it's going to get more and more difficult, more and more crazy. I mean, whatever people think crazy, you haven't seen it yet. It's coming. As all of this begins to lose its stability, you might say, it's literally going to be like a shaking experience of the whole simulation. I get it'd be just the same. What happens at the end of a video game? Like if you were a character in a video game and the video game came to the end, there's nothing else that can happen. What would happen to the character? Well, the character might go back, the person might push end, restart, the game starts again, and the character's back on the street, walking down the street like they did when the game started. That's one distinct possibility. For some, that literally you might go back to like 1746. Boom, there you are. Not even knowing that anything has changed. You'd be here one day, it's January, it's February the 1st, this year, 2024, and then all of a sudden it's February 2nd, 1742. And you have no memory. That's possible, unfortunately.
Really? Do you think so? That sounds incredible. But I mean, you wouldn't want to live for the next 40, 50 years in a 15-minute city, right? Due to climate lockdowns and whatever they can invent. Because
then, like we talked about, you're giving up your relative freedom. And again, it's all about what's the deepest goal. So if the goal is ultimate freedom and ultimate knowledge, then the things that you are experiencing in this realm have to be mirroring that inner search. So yeah, would any of those things be like, I can't tell anyone else what to do, right? Like, but no, I'm not interested. Just not interested, not doing it. So what will that mean as you go forward? Things will probably get very, very difficult. Now, as the simulation ends, I'm sure there will be various ways of trying to move people into the simulation. There might be things that are very physically oriented. It could be as simple as the planet is dying, and luckily we have some spaceships ready. And why don't you just board these, and we'll take you to another planet where you'll be safe. And as you go on the spaceship, and it shakes a little bit, and then you have a little blackout session, and when you come to, you're in the new simulation, and you didn't even know. And you land on the planet, and you think you've just gone from Earth to somewhere else, but you changed simulations. It could all be that subtle of the various ways this could happen.
I can carry up to any amount of money, and I did for the Vatican, and did that for years. So I'm very, very well respected to transport and certify that money is in place, and then inspect it, and then I would transfer it to your account.
But you always brought real money, huh, in a briefcase?
Oh no, you could never move that kind of. No, we'd wire transfer to an offshore accounts that I have, and then once they knew they were in place in my accounts, I would give them a code to see that it's in place. No, you're talking about $60-70 million at a time.
Wow.
You're not carrying that.
Yeah, I doubt you can have that in a briefcase, huh?
Oh yeah, tell me no. I've done up to like 10 million cash I'd carry.
What is very recent today? We're hearing all these stories that are coming out now,
Yes.
especially about what happened with Harvey Weinstein. It's become almost a feminist movement that is happening at the moment, even though it also happens to male actors. But was that something that you experienced in your day as well? The casting couch, which I know has been going on for all of that, and let's say sexual harassment from producers or agents or something like that in the old Hollywood days.
I was taken to meet Howard Hughes when I was about 14.
Really?
Maybe I was 15.
Uh-huh. In Las Vegas.
An agent took me, and I was left alone in the office with him for a half hour. But I was so mute and so terrified that I just sat there with my head down like this.
You and Howard Hughes in
Yes.
one room for half an hour not talking?
Yes.
Why would he do that for such a long time? He didn't make a pass.
I think this was at the beginning of his difficulties. I was really very fortunate. I met Harvey Weinstein, incidentally.
You did?
I was brought into...
Were you in one of his films?
Yes, a couple.
Yeah.
But the only time I saw him was... I was invited to be part of a read-through of a new script. I was still up, and Weinstein came into the room, and this was before De Niro had arrived, and we were introduced, and he was very excited, very charming, and he said, "Oh, I flew over with De Niro, Robert," and he was so excited to know you were going to be here for the reading, and I think he gave me a hug, but he was very warm and charming,
Mm-hmm.
and I never saw him again. And
So he liked you as an actress.
Yes, but I was probably too old for him. I don't agree with this blanketing thing of Me Too. There's a different thing between rape and also using your power to kill somebody's career or manipulate it. But that shouldn't be equated with somebody flirting stupidly.
Exactly. And it seems that these days, it's like everything is going under, even just a little, men being attracted to a woman and then maybe making a pass.
And people shouldn't be losing their jobs because of behaving like an adolescent, being ignorant and dumb.
Right.
Women haven't learned how to say no. Look at all the ads that we see of women enhancing their breasts and enhancing their butts, putting false things to attract all this.
You never had the experience in that way. You said you did with some people that you don't want to mention, but it wasn't something that was extraordinarily bad.
Well, it was someone who was, I would say, it was an actor who was on a level with me, in terms of being known and earning money, and he got me drunk, and I couldn't. He was physically overpowering, and I didn't know how to get out of it.
Oh, so you did kind of have that experience.
Like it was just, I was physically I was raped.
You were raped?
Yes. But,
and you couldn't resist.
And I never told anybody. But that's one of the things we all have to work on,
That is incredible. How did you deal with that afterwards?
I thought it was my fault.
So you blamed it on yourself?
Yes. Yeah, that's very typical.
It is?
Yeah.
How old were you when that terrible incident happened?
Early 20s.
Really? So you were still, you were headlining at that time?
Yeah.
But some people have had good experiences, also character actors who doesn't know much about what is actually going on. There are people who really doesn't know, and I do believe that they're honest about it, huh? It's not everybody who's inaugurated or who's been taking part in rituals and all of those things that we hear about, huh?
Most are really nice people. It's really the upper echelon is where the real nasty stuff goes on. And, that's the way it is. I mean, people, Hollywood has got this thing and you can't break their image, and no matter what you do.
Yeah, and a lot is coming out now and in recent years. And of course, the whole Me Too thing is just the tip of the iceberg of the things that they don't talk about.
Yeah, and there's a lot of squirming going on. Quentin Tarantino's now saying that he should have reined in Harvey. It's like, Quentin, you were doing it too. Stop it. Everybody knows that you were doing it too. It's like, everybody does it. And it's going to destroy Hollywood by this. It's going to get really interesting. This is one of my favorite subjects. Hollywood is going to die. And the reason it's going to die is because film business is the only business that loses money every year but continues. That's why all you're seeing is superhero movies and everything's just a derivative of something else. And, there'll still be good movies made, but for the most part, the whole underbelly, the financial underbelly is gone. And besides, guys like Harvey Weinstein, do you think that they got into making movies because they're artists? They got into making movies so they could get some.
Why did that even happen? You had already signed the deal. It wasn't to get the deal. That's what we hear a lot with the Me Too movement and what happened with Harvey Weinstein and all of those people. But you were already there, climbing.
Yeah, no, this was the opposite. He felt like I owed him. It was like, I did all this for you. Now you're getting famous. Now you're going to, and I'm going to get left in the dust kind of thing. Because then at that point, I can hire any producer I want. I don't need him anymore,
But couldn't you just say no and say, I'm not going to a motel of all places with you?
I didn't think he was going to rape me. He was like an uncle. I was friends with his wife. I loved his 2 little girls. I trusted him 100,000,000%. I never in a million years ever thought he was going to do that to me. I mean, we had traveled before and he'd never done anything. And like I said, I was good friends with his wife and his family. It took 7 months to record the album and we did lots of demos. So no, he was it's almost as though he had gotten possessed or something, like something took him over. And that's why, again, it all ties back to like this life that we're living. What is it with these attacks that come, whether it's through a lover, a narcissist, in the form of a boss, a producer, a boyfriend, a brother, a mother? it just seems that, like, again, when I sit down and I think about my life, I go, it feels like I have been pursued by those dark shadows for a very, very long time. Those things that held me down, trying to take my breath. But is that the very same thing that is also purifying me and making me stronger? That's the question.
I mean, it really touched me just how horrific the stories are, just the level of abuse, but then also just how organized it is, and extensive. This whole breeding program. So that was one thing that really did blow me away. I would say another thing was Epstein's his ability to connect with not just American prime ministers, because we all know there's a lot of focus on just the celebrity aspect of like, oh, Epstein knew this celebrity and he knew that celebrity. And of course, we've known for years about Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. And I think they're basically equally represented, to be honest, in the Epstein files. So that blows away any ideology coming in and saying, oh, he was just, it's just a Democrat hoax or it's just a Republican thing. No, it's got nothing to do with party lines. It cuts across everything. And it doesn't just cut across country lines. I mean, he had access to British prime ministers, the British leadership, Macron in France. Macron was a Rothschild banker, of course, so it's not surprising there. We have the Rothschilds and all of that. Very big connections with Scandinavian prime ministers and leaders, big connections with the Middle East and the sultans. So in all these areas of the world, he's got very close relationships with the leader or people in the leadership circle. And it just goes to show, I mean, the extent of his reach is astonishing. I just did a video recently on how he was acting almost like Bill Gates's gatekeeper. He was controlling access who had access to Bill Gates. There were people that wanted to interview Bill Gates, who is by his own right a very rich and powerful man. But they had to go through Epstein to arrange a meeting with Bill Gates. I mean, he had an incredible ability to manipulate people, to worm his way into their inner circle and then gain influence, gain control over them.
Do you think that there is a specific reason for you now to be a speaker of truth, of spirituality and the esoteric, and to go public about some rather controversial subject matters?
Yes, I think it was always on the cards for me. I like to think that I came here to be a tool for the all that is, to be here to serve the highest good, not just of myself, but of all mankind, us being united, I believe, as one and serving the one. So when I look back on my life, I see certain signposts that indicated that perhaps I was here to speak out. I certainly don't and never have had a problem speaking out, oftentimes when it was uncomfortable and when other people felt it was uncomfortable to do so. So I'm here to do the best that I can to reveal what, truth is a big word, and we can drop that word easily, but everybody has their own truth. I think ultimately we need to find a way to all come home to a larger truth in which we can all feel safe and included and work for the higher good.
Well, it makes now a really exciting time to be a researcher or a seeker or a truth teller, because I think there's an appetite and a receptivity for it that is something new.
Absolutely. And it's wonderful to see how many people are waking up at the moment.
My mum passed away last year, but my mum and my dad have been really receptive to the work I've been doing in the recent years, where I've been talking about interdimensional experiences, extraterrestrial experiences, spiritual emergencies, Kundalini awakenings. And I would never have imagined when I was a boy that I could have conversations about those things with my mum and dad, but they are and have been very awake to these things. I get a lot of pushback as well from people who just want to stay, on the rails, so to speak. But I am frequently surprised by the people who say, yes, I've wondered that for a long time. In fact, this thing happened to me.
It's interesting also, Paul, what you say about the thinning of the veil. And I've been spending a lot of time doing retreats to places of sacred energy sites, especially here in the United Kingdom, and I'm going back to Mary Magdalene sites in France shortly. And it's interesting.
wonderful.
Yes, and it's interesting that pretty much all of the religious sites are built on more ancient sites of understanding and knowing. So they're literally plugging into that original cipher, that original energy source, by simply placing their place of divine worship on top of those original, I don't want to say pagan, but original energy source vortexes. And obviously this planet, which is living, as you said, is a living being, has these beautiful points of entry and exit, and where the veil is thin. And in fact, I read something the other day that said that the reason why we're fighting over Israel is because there is a Stargate there, and that the whole point of this war is to gain access to this Stargate. So,
Yes.
when we understand that there is literally a war going on to gain power over these sacred points on our beautiful planet, it's very interesting to realign our sights and to look at what's going on in terms of this ancient understanding.
So did you see when your consciousness, let's just say, left the body, I would assume, did you actually see and hear what was going on in the room?
Well, the most incredible thing happened, and I know you've heard, many stories of people who've had near-death experiences in the hospital and or at accident scenes. I hovered over my body. But when I say I hovered over my body, what I mean by that for your audience was that me, Peter Anthony, I guess in spirit form, looked down on the operating table and saw Peter Anthony in physical form. I could hear their thoughts. Now, this is important. I could hear their thoughts. I could hear the fear. It was almost as though I was a wolf or a dog in Alaska, and my senses were just so acute. But I could and I'm not saying this is such a thing, but it was almost as though I could smell the fear in the room. I certainly could sense the fear in the room. And as I'm looking down at me, Peter Anthony, on the operating table, I remember them going to medical protocol, and I remember them slapping the paddles on my chest, stand back clear. And it was at this time that I felt it was as though there was this thread that was attached to my solar plexus. And I felt this snap. And this is where I felt the actual spirit, soul, leave the physical form, meaning the physical form of Peter Anthony, and I began to float above. Now, interesting enough, in the far right corner, I could see a clock. And below that clock, I could see a spiraling tunnel. And me, agnostic, not believing in anything divine, certainly there was no mention of near-death experiences and or information of that type of experience back then in the 80s. I remember seeing this rotating circle. I call it the bullseye. And I do remember seeing people that I recognize from earlier parts of my life that apparently I understood, I grasped, I, if you will, downloaded, knew that these people had passed because they, like me, were in spirit form. But as this tunnel, this bullseye is rotating, I could see people that I recognized.
Well, inside of the tunnel.
Outside the tunnel. It was though here we have a rotating tunnel, and on the peripheral, on either side, were people that I had recognized from, an example, like my third grade teacher, Mrs. Bellamy. But it wasn't, and I mentioned this before in many of my YouTube videos and my lectures, it wasn't the Mrs. Bellamy that I recognized as a third grader, but the Mrs. Bellamy whose physical form was beautiful and was young and was vibrant.
They always look better, don't they? That's what a lot of near-death experiences are saying. How do we distinguish what the truth is. Some researchers will say 200 alien races and these people are working with the government, or the New World Order is this and it's not that, or whatever. Where is the truth? Is the truth out there, and how do we find it?
It's a great question. And of course, the truth is out there. The truth will always be out there. The truth is like a pillar that will always stand tall. You can wrap it in a whole bunch of other ways with your disinformation or lies, but those things eventually drop off. And what still remains? The truth. It is a constant in the universe. So to answer your question, how do we as individuals seek that truth and know it's the truth? Well, then it all comes back to ourselves. It comes back to, do you really seek personal mastery? Do you want to be enlightened? Do you want to become the best human being you can? Do you want to have a very strong and healthy body, which does tie into the mind? We all all the systems work together. Body, mind, and spirit is all part of the whole. So really, it is enhancing these human systems within ourselves. And I believe that this will give us the ability to discern what is right, what is wrong. And that's why it's kind of like the magician's trick. Once you see how they pull the rabbit out of the sleeve, you can watch that act a million times and see them how they pull the rabbit out of the sleeve. But until you learn how these deception mechanisms are taking place, you're in the trap.
We have ETs in the seat of government. I can't tell you who because I don't know myself. But they come in and they put themselves in various government positions to direct certain things that are going on. But as far as the President of the United States, he knows nothing. The President of the United States, if there's anything that the intelligence community hates, it's elected officials and appointed officials.
Donald Trump.
Yeah, elected officials and appointed officials. So no reason to pick on Donald Trump. He's just like everybody else. The last president to know anything of any significance was Eisenhower. The only reason Nixon knew something when he was president was because the vice president is always told what the president is told, and Nixon was the vice president under Eisenhower. Now, when Nixon was president, he had a friend, Jackie Gleason, the famous actor.
Yeah.
And Jackie Gleason lived in New York, and he was a UFO buff to the extent that he had his house built like a flying saucer.
Oh, wow.
He had a collection of UFO books that surpassed none. One day he was playing golf with Nixon and mentioned it, and they were in Florida, and President Nixon says, well, I want to show you something. So they got the Secret Service to drive over to Homestead Air Force Base, and Homestead was where underground they had some of the laboratory storage aliens. They had the cold vaults where they take alien dead bodies and they put them in there.
Real bodies.
Yeah. And anybody who's authorized gets to see it. So Nixon took Gleason to this place and showed him the real bodies. And it really changed Jackie Gleason's life. He went home. The reason we know this is his wife, second wife, was going to write a book about this, and told the day that he came home and said that he was completely changed. Person said, what happened? He said, well, let me get a drink and then I'll tell you. And told her about seeing the alien bodies. But they prevent that from ever happening again. They don't want the president relating any kinds of stuff. The way security clearances work is top secret is the lowest clearance you can get. Above that, there's 38 levels. There's 20 levels of top secret crypto labeled top secret crypto 14, 15, 16. And then above the 28 levels, there's 10 names. There's a total of 38 levels. Now, above top secret crypto 28, they start with names like Umbra, Electra, names like that. And the very top clearance being Majestic. And that's the clearance that Bob was being groomed for.
Bob
Lazar.
Bob Lazar.
He didn't quite make it, but he was almost up there. And every time they would raise his clearance to a different level, he'd be given more material to read. And these briefings, he said there was about 150 of them. They were in blue folders. And he would turn the pages, and the last several pages had paper clips in them, so he couldn't get to them. And then, as his clearance was being elevated, they'd undo the paper clips and let him read a couple more pages.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Please go on with your background and your history as the great-granddaughter of President Dwight D. Eisenhower.
I met Mamie when I was a young child. I stayed at the Gettysburg Farm, which him and her lived in for some time. And then when she was on her deathbed, when I was a young child, up until about the age of 5, I was holding her hand while she was on her deathbed. He had already passed. But, different rumors have come up over the course of time. I was pre-targeted before birth because he was briefed that a descendant would come in and help expose information, along with a lot of others, that there would be a huge number of us that would bring about truth, right? And that really relieved him during that time, because there was an unconditional surrender agreement that took place in 1952 under Truman. And I got to be careful what I share, because I know this is on YouTube. But starting in the 1930s were when these deals happened, abduction deals, technology trades. We had reached warp 1, and so there was collaboration happening between humans and off-planet entities. And I'll kind of keep that simple. So a lot had already taken place before he became president. Project Paperclip, Roswell crash, Admiral Byrd's expedition to Antarctica. By the time he entered presidency, he had inherited this immense problem. But in order to hide, they created false narratives, putting the blame on him, also making him out to be a war criminal. So I'm like, when I first heard all this, I'm like, well, what if that's true? Well, I can have his back only up to a certain point. I wasn't there, but I know he's a good man. So what could be the possible reasons this would have happened? So I started to explore from that angle. Then I met more whistleblowers, more experiencers, people that would know. And I know I have an agreement to expose a lot that happened during his administration that has been hidden. There's 20 levels of top secret above the president when he became president, like 30 levels.
So what you were saying before, I think, or what you were alluding to, was that U.S. commander under President Truman, Valiant Thor, warned the U.S. in 1952 that the alien race, known to us as the Nordics, were in bed with the Nazis.
So Val Thor went rogue in order to help advise Eisenhower's administration about what was really, taking place. He warned about the Nordics and the Greys in 1952. Later in the later 1950s, he was put on VIP status at the Pentagon. And it didn't go very far because the Joint Chiefs of Staff, basically the shadow government, shut down the mission. But supposedly there's 200 ships, and Victor 1, connected to Val Thor, is stationed at Lake Mead, and it's got invisibility, but you can sense the energy field if you throw rocks and you see birds kind of flying around it. And it was a very positive military unit that Eisenhower set up to keep the MJ-12 boys in check, because he had lost control of the whole administration, because the president didn't have any real power. And this was a carryover, this shadow government that he really couldn't stop. So he worked with Val Thor to covertly set up the White Hats, the Earth Alliance, the USMC Special Section, Ike's Force that Randy Kramer's a part of. And all this still survives today. So this is wonderful of Eisenhower to have been able to do that, along with other well-intentioned people during his administration. And also being briefed that there would be individuals like myself and you and others that would be all about the truth, and that we would bring all this to light. And again, I love the beginning of this conversation to discern, to have this greater conversation.
I mean, it's like, so Eisenhower had a difficult choice. He was a good man. He did not make a treaty with bad guys deliberately. The ambassador he met with carried a little device on his belt, and it implants subconscious drives in a person without them knowing. It means that it doesn't change the personality or the sense of humor. It just manipulates their decision making. Thus, keep everything disclosed, way past the point at which it's reasonable. In the original bylaws of the National Security Act, part of it was to disclose fully to the world what they knew when they felt people wouldn't riot. Today, it's not the people that would riot. It's the people in a hidden government and classified system that are more scared about what will happen to them should it be disclosed. What we're working on is about disclosure without destruction, without this rioting in the street nonsense. No one from another world would do that, except tyrants.
Do you think we will ever have disclosure?
Yes. And not because people on Earth would do it of free will, because they don't have free will.
But even if people have seen that, which of course leads us to believe that there are aliens and there are UFOs and these crafts, we are still talking about government papers and leaked papers from government officials. How can we know for sure that that is fact? Even if the alien presence is real.
Well, what I was saying is the contradiction is in the question. We went from 41 to 47 with a world in total, complete darkness about anything happening. The governments were being that effective. Anybody who came forward with any description, that's when they trotted out counter intel that would say it was a hubcap thrown up in the air.
They still say that.
When you get to 47, we have too many eyewitnesses because there were multiple of these sites. Some of them have even been accused of being something where you would have a purposeful crash put down so that we would end up getting the technology, and that this was a way, without scaring us, to get technology into our hands to advance us more.
But that would only advance the military.
If you say that any of this could have been the government at any time, the contradiction is huge superimposed silence to keep the public and the media deaf and blind. The only mistake, which is what opened up the floodgates, was the Colonel Blanchard in Roswell going and putting out that story that a disc like Kenneth Arnold crashed. Then what happens? The 8th Air Force and everybody comes in and says, no, it was a weather balloon, go away, there's no story here. They had to lie and start lying and keep up policies of lying because they got caught in trying to keep a camouflage of silence. So what I'm saying is every single thing that was happening was to keep the public and the media deaf and blind about anything.
Which they still do.
But once there was an honest crash with multiple eyewitnesses, military putting out a story, they were caught in a brand new situation. And the only way that they have ever been able to deal with anything since is policies of denial and lies. And I'm sitting in front of you saying that I have talked with somebody who has been able to prove to me their Air Force record and what they did, and that they have told me about a face-to-face with one of the Ebens, a very, very dramatic story, in which their own military authority came and said, we want you to have the experience.
I think that the aliens that create this terraform Earth create an Earth-like place for a species such as a human to come in and experience, and all these other life forms. They actually create the life forms. We are a humanoid life form, right? We are a composite being.
Are we a hybrid?
Absolutely. And that's why we have the reptilian mind. I think that there are at least 12 sort of substantial alien races that contributed to creating this body mind complex that we call a human. It's a vehicle. We're spirit first. And you must understand the war with the reptilians is one that the Pleiadians have been involved in for eons, that they want humans to continue to fight that enemy of theirs, to help them in their fight, in their battle, to take back their lands in the solar systems.
The energy source of hate and cruelty and aggression, which you dished out the last time you were on here, and And that energy, that frequency of hate, how do you think that can possibly in any way be a good thing and be used for good?
Well, I think, first of all, that when you ask that question, it's a fair and honest question. And it's like you and I are sitting on a stage, right? And you're sitting in this chair, I'm sitting here, and you ask me that question. And I would say to you, well, look, Lucas, behind us, behind the stage, there's a huge mass of scenery. And in order for me to answer your question accurately, we have to remove all that scenery. We have to remove all the assumptions of what it means to be human. There has to be a change of heart in your sense of humanity. If you think that, where did you get your sense of humanity from in the first place? Who told you what it means to be human? Who told you that it's better, you're a better person if you're empathetic and kind and tolerant than if you're hateful and angry? Who told you you were a better person?
Well, that should be something clearly that every human who possess the ability to be an empath and be empathetic know is the best way immediately. You feel that if you do a good deed, if you're warm-hearted, if you're loving to somebody, you'll be rewarded in that way. And it
No, you
fills
won't.
you up.
No, you won't. No, you won't.
Oh.
No, you won't. Not if they're a psychopath. Not if they're a narcissistic sociopath. They won't respond to empathy. They don't have empathy themselves.
Absolutely right. But not, hopefully, luckily, not everybody on this planet are psychopaths and sociopaths. Maybe only those at the top, huh?
Well, in consideration of the very great possibility, which I think for which there's a great deal of evidence, that it is these sociopaths and psychopaths who are in leading positions in our society, then it raises a serious question. What is the point of expressing empathy and love to people who do not receive it and will not be changed by it?
Don't you think the frequency of love and the frequency of goodness can overthrow and actually maybe put balance into this darkness? Isn't that
Absolutely
what we're
not? Absolutely not, my friend.
Oh.
And I'm happy to disagree with you because I know that we can disagree and that generates our conversation. I couldn't disagree with you more.
Oh, wow. That's a lot, huh?
Love is not the solution to our situation.
Maybe some things cannot be investigated so easily.
Very good point. And that is actually described in science theory. And we talk about 3 circles, things that we can investigate and understand, things that we cannot investigate right now because we lack an instrument or money or personnel. I mean, like the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland, they had to build that to find traces of the Higgs particle. Before that, they could just have a general idea and have hypotheses about it, and they lacked the tool, but suddenly they had the tool and could demonstrate the possible existence at least. And then finally, science theory is very clear about that there is a 3rd circle, and they, of course, intermingle with issues that we cannot understand and we cannot investigate them right now. And there are a lot of such areas that are sort of general to us that are very hard to investigate and very hard to understand. Headache, love and compassion, understanding, and so on. You can describe them. I mean, I could ask you, are you in love, yes or no? But that doesn't mean I understand what is exactly love. And we can sit for
what is
weeks.
The feeling and the emotion that you
we
feel?
can sit for weeks and talk about it. We could measure different hormones, transmitters, other molecules, protein changes, etc. But still, we would lack the innermost core, the essence. And maybe it takes time. But as a scientist, I'm sure that time allowing, we will understand everything. And after that, the world will be extremely boring. Because the more you learn and the more you understand, the less fascinating is the world. And I've seen here at the conference, for instance, and I won't go into what I've seen, but I've seen situations where I realized that, yeah, if they just would have read this and that paper, they wouldn't say like that. They wouldn't believe in this. They wouldn't try to sell you that kind of misinformation. And the moment, as I say, you get all the knowledge, life is pretty boring, you know. So maybe it's not meant to be like that. And at the same time, as you know, time is extremely against us. There will soon come a time when we probably will not be around any longer. And with soon, that could be hundreds of millions of years, but it's a very short time from a developmental point of view.
The kiss of Judas, for example. Why did Judas have to go and kiss Jesus in order to make it known for the Roman soldiers who they were going to pick? He could have just pointed him out. No, he was initiated too. So he had to do it, or else Jesus would, it would look, or the other disciples would say, why he's not doing what he...
Well, the Romans and the Greeks themselves were a little bit into both, huh?
Mary the Magdalene is the beloved disciple. We know that today. And if you put all things together, there's no doubt about it. I mean, it would be as the same to point out in the universe that there's only us here in the universe. I mean...
A lot of people are saying that.
No, yeah, but...
But this is at least your interpretation.
No, it is not.
Okay, so this is your knowing, which brings me to the next chapter of this Gnostic talk, because knowing is part of Gnosticism. To know, to feel that you know. But I mean, could this knowing, I've spoken to a lot of Gnostics and I use it myself, but this is a critical question. Could this knowing not just be, well, disinformation from other realms, which the archons certainly can access and work from, and they could, you know, they could fool anybody
if you allow it to be so, but I have never allowed that to be. And
but how do you know? How do you know that what you get from another realm, that this is the truth? A lot of people say, I get the download, I have my guides, and then they say something during a session or clairvoyant session, whatever, and different people say different things. Who are we to believe?
You can believe whatever you want. I think when you have been connected to Source, there's no doubt of what that is or what that isn't. You can have all kinds of weird ideas about it, and you can call it what you want.
But if the archons can work with mind control, emotional control, frequency control, why couldn't they project something from another realm that you can't see, something that seems loving or light or a piece of information that is amazing?
I tell you what, because they don't know what love is. So how can they project it? They are very primitive powers.
If they project it in the white light, where we go to have a wiped memory, to go back not being able to remember.
There is, when you see the two different kinds of light we are talking about, you know which one it is. It takes maturity and it takes experience.
What is the best thing or the most positive thing that we can do when learning about these things?
I think the scripture says, know the truth and the truth will set you free. I think that is a very important point that needs to be made. Open your mind. The world is not what you think it is. I can guarantee you, nothing on this earth works the way you think it does. There's an old term that the world works on smoke and mirrors. Well, when I was a kid, I used to think, what are you talking about, smoke and mirrors? I mean, if you walk out in front of a bus and you get run over, that wasn't smoke and mirrors, that's real. So what do you talk about the world works with smoke and mirrors? Well, now I understand the term. It means deception. Words and terms and ideas that are told to you when you were growing up, that's not true, but they're deception. And so the world you come up into and grow into is filled with smoke and mirrors, symbolically meaning when you look at something, no, you're looking at yourself as a mirror. And then you look over here to an attorney or an expert to tell you this, and he's telling you something else, a bunch of smoke.
What is the best thing we can do? Even when we say the truth will set us free,
Well,
which is right.
Yeah.
But how can we go on from there?
The first thing is first. You need to, for the first time in your life, understand completely what humility means. Because if you're arrogant and you know everything there is to know about everything and you don't need to hear all this other nonsensical stuff, talk audibly to the Great Spirit. I do believe in God. I do believe there is a spirit in the universe.
Which is good?
Yes, which is good. It's not good, it is just what it is. God says through the prophet Isaiah, I create good, I create evil. I create life, I create death. I create wars and violence, I create peace. I create it all. I'm God and I can do whatever I want to. Sometimes
So is there any hope for the human race and for our spirits?
I tend to think that the history of the human race has taught us that there's not any hope for the whole human race. But for those who want more, more will be added. Those who want to know will begin to learn things they're supposed to know. Certain people will learn what they want to know. It will be given to them. As I have what is called faith. But faith is not what Christians think it is. Whatever's supposed to happen, it will. Whatever you're supposed to learn, you will. If you're not supposed to, you won't. So I'm just saying that the world is far, far different than what you think it is. And not like that astronomer said, the universe is not only stranger than you imagine, it's stranger than you can imagine.
And some people may fall into the fear trap. What can they do when they hear that, when they will maybe be consumed by fear?
That's Lucas, you show me the level of knowing. You're at a very high level. That final question, you know your stuff, and it's not just because you've interviewed lots of people. You are very, very spiritual yourself. You're at a very high level. You know, you're 12th strands, 12th dimensional. You're both psychic and spiritual. You are uncorruptible. The soul in your body is 100% good. There's no evil in you.
Thank you.
I know that. Everyone makes a choice. They make their choice based on what they see around them and what they feel here in their soul or their heart. If you live in fear, you attract all the bad things to you and nothing good's going to happen. If you want to break free from that and you say, look, I didn't just come to this earth to get up at 9 o'clock in the morning and go to work, and then at the end of the week I've just got enough money left to buy the kids an ice cream or to do this. Well, that's not what humanity was designed for. So we need to question everything about what we have been taught as is proper and right. And what I and others are speaking about is only the truth. It's about breaking free. It's about seeking the truth and saying, I want to know what being a human is really about. What is it really to be a human? Is it to be born into this world, to pay for everything, and then when I'm old, I've got to pay for my own funeral? There isn't another planet anywhere in any dimension where a living creature of consciousness has to pay to eat, to drink, to be warm, to buy clothes, to have a roof over its head. This is the only place. So if we can break free from here, we can break free from anywhere.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your patience and for accepting this interview. And God bless you for what you do. And may you be led on this path with angels surrounding you and guiding you to reaching all ends of the world, because I really believe that that's why you're here. And that's why you've started this channel. And you both, everyone works so well together, and you have a beautiful, I don't know how to pronounce your partner's name.
Lauge.
Lauge. He does such a good job, and just hats off to him because he's the one that does all the stuff behind the scenes. So, and you're such a great interviewer. So thank you so much for allowing me to open up, because I have not opened up like that. And it shocked me because it was like out of control. And I was like, God bless you, because it was meant to come out. I didn't think it was. So.
Thank you. Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for saying that.
Well, thank you very much, Lucas. You asked some really wonderful questions. It was great to connect with you and have the opportunity to speak in this age of truth. It was my pleasure.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Excellent interview. Excellent questions. You know, I've given 1,000 interviews over 35 years, and this is one of the best.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Seriously.
Thank you so much.
I don't say that to people. You won't find me saying that on tape. You won't find any of that.
Wow, that's such a privilege. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stand up for truth. Speak truth. Be truth. We wish you peace, strength, and most of all, love. Thank you for watching us. Thank you for supporting us. You can support us by clicking onto our website, ageoftruth.tv. And please like our videos, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell for notifications. You can sign up for our newsletter on our website, ageoftruth.tv as well. Please also subscribe to our alternative channels on BitChute and Brighteon, and do follow us on Instagram and on Facebook.
Maybe nothing lasts forever, but I know I'll never ever go back again to how it was back then. And I know I must be strong. I don't know where this ends, so this is me. I'm breaking free. Here I am, breaking free. Hey, yeah. Oh, breaking free. Oh, this is me. I'm breaking free. Tusen takk.